my goal is to focus on 3 pillars. I'll walk you through them really fast. So
Please.
I think the fund is going to be between 14 and 17,000 ETH, and 55% of that is going to be focused on what I call Pillar 1, which is vetted, high-quality teams launching new projects.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the Metaverse.
GM, thanks for tuning into the Unstoppable Podcast. My name is Josh Gordon. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Ryan Carson, founder of Fund 121G. Now, this fund is investing in NFTs, and I'm really excited to dive into it with you. It's a emerging space that I think is really interesting because of your perspective on investing in NFTs for the future and really trying to identify the ones that are built to last. And that's no easy task. I'm also a Moonbirds holder, so this is a special conversation for me. Ryan, welcome. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show, Josh. Excited to dig into all the things and chit chat.
For sure. Now, I kind of stumbled upon your journey and who you are when I was following Proof Collective and Kevin and the whole Moonbirds Mint, and it's been interesting following your ride. Can you start off by sharing your journey into how you really got started in crypto and how that led up to you joining the Proof team and helping build Moonbirds?
Yeah, you bet. So I have been a founder CEO for about 20 years, got a computer science degree, and then started building companies, and built 3 companies. All 3 of those have been acquired. And the last one was Treehouse, which was an online school that taught over 600,000 people how to code. And that was acquired in December of 21. And Kevin Rose was my first investor in Treehouse. And we actually met way back when I used to do these big conferences called the Future of Web Apps, and met him. He was one of my speakers, and Gary Vaynerchuk did his, I think, first big speaking gig on my stage. And so just go way back with Kevin, and we're good friends. And so as I was coming out of Treehouse, I was listening to his podcast, Proof. And I was following along the journey and learning more and more about NFTs and Web3. And in December, I texted him and said, "Hey man, I'm thinking about grabbing a Proof pass." And he said, "Awesome. Excited to have you as part of the community." So I just joined as a member. And so hopped in the Discord. I think I was the first person in the Discord.
Nice.
And just kind of welcomed everyone to the community. It was really fun and really inclusive, and it was just such a good community. And then I think one day he said, "Hey man, we're going to do a town hall. Can you help me run the crowd and take questions?" And because Kevin and I are good, we're good on stage together. We have kind of a good vibe. And I said, "Sure." And, just started helping out more and more. And then, I think it was mid-January, because Kevin was full-time at True Ventures. And I realized, you know what, it'd be so fun to join this team full time. And so I texted him and said, "Hey, can I be your COO? And I can help you build this thing. I know that you're busy running things at True, and I can kind of help boot things up." And Justin Mezel and Kevin had already started Proof. And so I just kind of came in as the COO who helped kind of boot it up, and got the community going. I love building community and hanging out with smart people. So what Kevin said, "Let's go." So, joined as the COO. I'm not a co-founder, just joined as the first executive, and we just had a blast building the community. It was really fun.
It exploded, man. I mean, it was pretty wild watching Moonbirds come onto the scene all the way up through Mint. I think it really did catch one of what feels like right now is one of the final NFT waves before we'll see how long we're in a little bit of this bear winter slump for. But it really captured everyone's energy, and that was exciting to see, and you definitely had a big play in that. I also want to note I was a student of Treehouse 2 back in the day when I was getting my computer information systems degree in school.
That's awesome.
I popped on and did some tutorials in my free time. So
that makes
cool
me happy to hear.
Cool to chat about that.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you jumped in helping build the community, and now I'm also curious, were you doing a lot of crypto investing beforehand, or was like Proof one of the first NFTs you had purchased?
Yeah, so I started buying various cryptocurrencies early on. So ETH and Bitcoin, Luna, a couple other ones like that. And so I was really collecting a lot of cryptocurrencies early, and I was experimenting with NFTs. But I would say that Proof was my first serious purchase. Minting even at 1 ETH, which is where I ended up getting it, at that time felt like a big deal. So I came in early and learned a ton being inside of Proof. The Proof community is amazing. It's 1,000 NFT collectors and artists who are just very experienced, very interesting, and learned a ton as I went through that community. And then when I joined the team, and getting an inside track onto how all these things are done and how they're built, was really eye-opening. And I think, what's interesting, people talk about Moonbirds, why was it such a huge success and what happened there? And I think there's a couple reasons, and I'll kind of walk you through them.
Please.
The first is that Kevin is a charismatic, passionate leader, right? And Kevin has been building communities for decades. And so the first piece of the success of Proof is the fact that Kevin built a real community and then launched a token on top of that. And Proof is only 1,000 members, right? So it's not a huge community. So it's a community you can know, and that you can build, and that you can build a true community with. And so that was the beginning. And then we have Justin Mazel, who came in as the co-founder of Proof with Kevin, who has tremendous product chops and experience, and is very genuine and kind. And then we just kind of privately worked, right? So, I helped build out the foundation of the company and the community. Justin was shipping product. Kevin was leading. And the first thing we did was Grails. So, a lot of people didn't know about Proof. They didn't know about Grails. But Kevin had a vision for Grails, which was awesome. It was, let's get 20 of the world's best artists, 4 of the top grossing artists of all time, to create an NFT for a collection called Grails. And then each Proof member got to mint 1 Grails, essentially for free. It was 0.05 ETH, which all went to the artists. And it ended up being that the artists were Dmitry Cherniak, Tyler Hobbs, Ixshells, Larva Labs, Gary Vee, Alexis Ohanian. It was mind-blowing. And some of our members minted, a Grail that was worth 80 ETH. And so all of a sudden people notice, like, gosh, Proof is delivering a lot of value to Proof holders. And the floor started to increase, and we never talked about the floor or focused on it, but it started going up. And I think that's the key that folks need to understand about Moonbirds. Like, there's a real community there. There was real value being delivered. And then what happened is, Kevin and Justin and I had an offsite. I went to Mexico and we decided to expand the community, right? So it was like, all right, Proof is, I think it was like 20 or 30 ETH floor at that point. And it was very inaccessible to normal folks, right? So the thought was, okay, let's expand the community, but thoughtfully. And let's make a price point that's more accessible. And let's allow folks to come in and be a part of the Proof ecosystem, but not dilute the value of Proof holders. And so then we decided to launch a 10K PFP to that community. So instead of like a lot of projects that start as a 10K PFP and then try to figure out how to build a community and how to deliver value, we had already built a valuable community. And the thing I'll point out, because we'll get into, well, how did 121G come into this and why did I leave
For sure.
Proof? But since I had sold my last company, I had always wanted to start a venture fund. And, I had raised a lot of venture capital, but I had never been a venture capitalist. And I thought, I feel like I could be a great investor because I know what founders need. And I could be very helpful and empathetic. So I think it was probably in February, late February, I said to Kevin, hey, do you mind if I start a fund on the side? I'll run it nights and weekends. It won't interfere with Proof. And he said, yeah, no problem. Let's do it by the book. Let's make sure we hire great, attorneys and do everything correctly. And we both said, great, and it wasn't a big deal. And then we started to get ready to launch Moonbirds, and then Kevin did his first Spaces on Twitter, and Kevin has 1.6 million followers, right? So as soon as we did that first Twitter Space, the industry woke up and realized, oh my God, this is going to be a big project. We were planning on it being a Dutch auction, starting at 2.5. We thought it would go down to 1, mint out at 1, that it would be successful, but we'd have to work a long time to make it a top 5 PFP.
Yeah.
And as soon as we launched that Twitter Space, it became clear, oh my goodness, this is going to sell out probably at 2.5, and it's going to be this big gas war. And we made the hard decision to switch to a fixed price raffle. And then at that point, it was like, wow, this might be bigger than any of us thought, And when I signed on to Proof, it was like, I'm a 3 times, CEO founder. I built companies before. I thought Proof was going to be this kind of fun, small community, right? I did not think we would launch a PFP that would dominate the industry. And then the Moonbirds Mint happened, and, it just blew us all away, right? I think nobody expected that it would do the kind of volume it
totally,
did.
yeah. It didn't.
And I think at that point, it was like, whoa, this is way bigger than I ever thought. And I think after I announced, and then I think on April 24th, I said, hey, the fund site is live, check it out, and didn't really think much about it because I had already announced the fund on April 4th, and it wasn't a big deal. But I think what I learned from that is I gained 30,000 followers on Twitter since April 4th to April 24th. And the mistake I made was assuming that all my new followers knew what I was doing, and assuming they knew that, I wasn't a co-founder, I was an executive, and assumed all that. And so when I announced the fund, I think people just didn't understand. It was like, wait, is Ryan's like a founder and he's like launching a fund, and like, is he walking away with all the mint money, and like, what is happening? And it was just a big misunderstanding on what was actually happening. And so I think at that point, Kevin and Justin and I, had a kind of come to Jesus talk, and I said, it's clear that Proof is going to be a multi-billion-dollar company, right? And you need a COO who has built a multi-billion-dollar company. I built companies, but I haven't done that. And I'm not a co-founder here. I own less than 1% of the company. I really want to focus on my fund. And honestly, I think it's best for both of us if we part ways, and shake hands and we stay friends. And I think it happened faster than we all wanted because I was in the spotlight. But that's what happened. And it was tough going through that for everybody. I wish the timing was better. But that's what happened, and it was a pretty wild ride.
No, I appreciate you really sharing really, really clearly what transpired and what your intentions were going into it. It's something I want to talk about with you a lot is, this NFT space is developing and innovating so fast, and the playbook is being written, day by day. And the challenges that founders and project builders face, I think is really different than what a traditional company exec and employee faces, right? There's these expectations put on the builders that value has to be delivered what feels like daily, and that if there's a week of silence, the whole world's capitulating and that they've given up on the mission. You have this background where you've built companies and they weren't overnight successes, right? You probably, I can only imagine you spent years
I spent a
developing each
decade
one.
building Treehouse. A decade building Treehouse, and I've got some insight into Matt Gould, the CEO of Unstoppable Domains. I mean, he's been working on Unstoppable for half a decade now, right?
And all of a sudden, Moonbirds, it pops up and it's got these high valuations, and then all of a sudden, they're relentless. People are just relentless. So I'd like kind of your take on, we talk about community so much in NFTs and what it means, and I do think that they bring forth this really interesting social dynamic where you can connect with people who, by owning NFTs, you kind of signaling that you have these similar values or belief systems. Now, what's your perspective on the negative side of communities that can come out of it? I mean, or what kind of advice can you give to other project builders and founders that receive pushback from community always wanting more? I mean, do you have anything you could pass on to them, or just thoughts you could share around it? Because I just wish I could. Sometimes I see on Twitter and I want to say to everyone, yo, let's chill out. Like, relax. We have to understand building takes time and good products take years. So, hold on a second before you get upset.
Okay. So if you're lucky to be, on the back of a bull or on a rocket ship, like we, were and are with Moonbirds, I learned a couple things. So number one, you just can't expect that everyone has all the context all the time, right? You have new people coming into the project daily, right? You have folks that are busy. You have people with their own lives. And when they happen to see, an executive or a founder tweet from a project, they're not going to have all the context. Maybe they didn't get into the Discord over the last day. So the big lesson for me was just realizing that, folks don't know exactly what's going on. So when you speak, you really have to consider, like, gosh, what if someone doesn't know anything about anything and this is the first tweet they see, right? So that's like lesson one, which makes communication hard because it's like you're always starting over. But it's important to know that, right? That's thing one. Thing two is, like, almost counter to that is, if you're a builder, you have to also know that folks are impatient and that you're going to have to live through all of that and just keep working and deliver over a long period of time to prove everybody that the project is truly valuable. So you almost have to acknowledge it, but ignore it at the same time. And one of the reasons I'm so bullish on Kevin and Justin and the Proof team is I know that the success of Proof and Moonbirds and Highrise and everything that they're going to deliver, Kevin is betting his reputation on it. Like, literally his whole career is being betted on this. And so when you've got that much riding on it, it's going to take time and you just need to wait and be patient, right? So, Moonbirds, rocketed up to what it was, like 40 ETH or something. And now it's down to, 20, 25 ETH. And all of us who are a part of this ecosystem and believe have zero worry. It's like, I'm patient. I know that this is going to be like any good stock, right? It goes like this, dips and rises and dips and rises and dips and rises, but goes up and to the right, right? And unfortunately, we're dealing with an industry where a lot of folks don't have investing experience and they don't know that, right? And they also, unfortunately, FOMO'd into various projects without researching them. So they're constantly worried, is this thing literally going to zero? And so I've just had to kind of breathe and focus on the fact I know that that good teams are going to deliver over time.
Yeah.
And I know when people were angry at me and frustrated, I first had to learn the lesson. Okay, be more thoughtful in how I communicate, number one. But number two, just remember the facts. And I said this in a podcast interview this morning. How do I deal with it? I mute people on Twitter. Like, you can't, no human can take that amount of abuse, right? Like, it's too painful, right? And if you keep seeing it, it will wear you out, right? So I just mute people that are just really, mean, and then you see less of it, right? And I was thinking through that as I was preparing for this interview. I was like, I want to know the numbers here, and I want to be clear about what happened, right? So, number one, I wasn't a co-founder, right? I was an employee, and I own less than 1% of Proof Holdings, and I was paid a salary to work on the project, and I received $0 from the mint and the royalty, right? So I didn't walk away with anything from that huge mint day and all the royalties. That's kind of thing one to know. Thing number two is that, so we gave 2,000 Moonbirds to Proof holders. And so that value was from 0 ETH up to where it is today. Say it's 23 is the floor. And then we minted about 7,800 at 2.5 ETH. And when you chalk all that up, that was the team and we worked very hard to deliver $646 million of value, right? That's like approaching $1 billion, right? And so I just think, people may be mad for some reason that I left the project, but the truth is I worked my ass off and got, not much to create almost $1 billion of value for everybody. And I'm fine with that. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. No, good insight from you, and hearing how you were thinking through it, how you're dealing with it. I do agree. Sometimes just straight up hitting the mute button on Twitter is the best way to tune out a lot of that negative talk that comes at you just from sometimes what can feel like all directions online. It's almost an interesting part of the metaverse and crypto that we haven't quite started talking about yet and I used to work in virtual reality prior to Web3, and a topic of conversation that started to bubble up was like, how do you protect from harassment in digital environments? Like people literally coming up and being in your personal space. And it's these kinds of questions we were starting to think about in VR environments. Now I almost see, I see a lot of similarities in the NFT world is how do you draw the line? I guess some of it's just internet hate, right? And maybe that's cyberbullying. But I think some of it is also just where do you draw the line in these communities that we're building in terms of what's okay and what's not okay from the dialogue we have with each other?
Right. And I think this is where good community guidelines in places like Discord and really good moderators and really good teams does pay. So Proof has 2 amazing full-time community moderators plus a Discord moderator. AKA Stevie and Soda Pop are the 2 full-time community managers, and Proof just hired another full-time mod, and they're really good at guiding that conversation in the Discord. Honestly, there was some mean stuff being said about me in the Discord, and they sort of guided people and said, that's not what we're about. Like, and here are the facts, and it's okay to say certain things, but we're not a community where it's okay to be mean, right? And so it kind of guided people away from those conversations, and therefore it stopped, right? And I think that the good communities will have that protection in place. The bad communities will not. I also think another key is I think public discords are bad. I think the idea of a small private Discord that's only accessible by the holders of the NFT is very important, right? You shouldn't be in a community unless you are actually in the community, number one. And then once you're in the community, it doesn't give you right to say whatever you want, right? You have to abide by the rules and be kind and thoughtful. And that's where good moderators and good teams are really key. I think Kevin and Justin have done a good job of setting the example of speaking kindly and being graceful, gracious.
Totally. And maybe my last question on Moonbirds, and then I'd love to jump into your fund, is we're talking about a lot about community right now, and you are a Moonbirds holder, so you are part of the community still. And I'd just like your take on what makes you excited to be a holder and a believer that Moonbirds is going to maintain this top 5 PFP status. The thing that interests me a lot about it is the focus on like art and collection. It's different than, I also hold a Mutant Ape, and there's this focus on kind of streetwear and gaming, and so I kind of see Moonbirds playing a little bit of a different arena. But yeah, I just like your take on why do you think they'll continue to succeed beyond just Kevin's reputation and the hype they got at Mint.
Yep. So I love being a part of the Moonbirds community, and I love being a member of the Proof community as well. And the reason why I'm so bullish on Proof and Moonbirds is the team. So this is just like any other area of life where, why do I bet so strongly on Tesla? It's ultimately because of Elon. Like his vision is so disruptive, and I know he won't stop, that I know betting on Tesla is a good bet, right? It's not, I don't even know what the next car is going to be. I'm not sure how it's going to shape up, but I know that his vision is solid and that he will just do whatever it takes. And so in the same way, I know with Kevin and Justin and the team that they are the most solid bet in Web3 right now. And so whatever happens with Moonbirds and Proof, I know it's going to be good. And I know that because their reputation is relying on it, that they're fully doxed. There's investment from True plus 776 that will require accountability. So when I look at all those things, I'm like, this is a real enterprise, right? They need to deliver value to all Moonbirds holders. It's not, they don't even have a choice, right? They have a fiduciary duty now.
Yeah.
So I think just knowing that is part of it. But having been inside the team, I also know some of the plans, and they've hinted at things like high rise, and that your Moonbird is the key to that. And I know there's going to be subsequent drops because they've started to talk about it. And I know that there's going to be meetups and there's going to be IRL events, and it's going to be an amazing community to be a part of. And that's why I'm convinced it's gonna be a great solid bet long term. It's gonna be fun to see how it plays out.
It will be. Yeah, no, it really will be. I'm going to NFT NYC, and I do have the first meetup booked on my calendar. So whatever it really shapes up to be, I'm going to be there.
It's going to be great.
I have met that'll be awesome. I have met a couple Moonbirds holders, and I live in Portland, Oregon, and I think Kevin does too. I'm yet to meet up with Kevin, but
Kevin
there. Will make it happen one day. We met at a bar called White Owl, so it was very it was a good spot to do it at. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to now dive into your own fund and hear from you. Like you said, you wanted to get into VC, explain some really good points on why you think you can add value as an investor to founders. Since you've been there, you've experienced it. What made you want to go all in on Web3 with the fund? Was it your excitement and passion from getting the toes wet in everything we've just talked through? Is it something with the technology that you think is going to be revolutionary? What really led to that?
So the first thing I knew was that Web3 was going to change the world, right? So I saw Web 1 happen, I saw Web 2 happen, and as soon as I knew about Web3, I knew, okay, this is going to be the biggest revolution in human history. And then when I went deep, specifically with NFTs through Proof, I selected NFTs as the specific vertical that I would focus on. And as I went deeper and deeper and deeper with Proof and Moonbirds and the entire community, I knew that there was so much value to be created. And so I think when I decided to launch a fund and then specifically to focus on NFTs, so we're not going to do anything else. We're not going to do equity investing. We're not going to buy any cryptocurrencies. It's pure NFTs. I knew that I was in the right place at the right time to do that, right? Where essentially I've got, 2 decades of experience as a CEO founder, and then I've got experience building Proof, and then experience launching Moonbirds. I just knew that I happened to be, and it's not because I think I'm amazing. It's that I'm just the right person at the right moment to launch, I think, a great NFT fund that can spot upcoming projects and deploy capital in the best upcoming projects. And so it was interesting to launch it. So, I decided to call it 1.21 gigawatts fund because I love Back to the Future. And if you happen to be watching this video, you might see I've got the license plate from the DeLorean and various Lego sets. And then my wife had the idea of calling the tagline the fund you wish you could go back in time and invest in. So it's a bit of fun. So nice. Picked 121G as the name. And then, when we announced it on the 24th, I thought maybe I would get, 20 investors and, and it would be a small fund and I would just kind of build it and kind of work. But the interest was overwhelming. We completely filled the fund in 7 days and raised over $40 million. And I had to close the fund because there was so much interest. And I think what that means is everyone realizes now is the time, right? And the problem is unless you spend your, 10 hours a day researching NFTs, it becomes very hard to pick the right projects. And so I think a lot of folks that are investing in the fund are passionate about NFTs, but they just know they don't have, literally 50 hours a week to research and vet and pick the right projects. So, we're going to start deploying capital in July. My goal is to focus on 3 pillars. I'll walk you through them really fast. So
please.
I think the fund is going to be between 14 and 17,000 ETH, and 55% of that is going to be focused on what I call Pillar 1, which is vetted, high-quality teams launching new projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify 12 projects over the next 12 months that have experienced, fully doxed teams, and then I'm going to interview them, have a real call with them and ask them, what's your experience? What's your plan? What's your treasury plan? What's your hiring plan? How are you going to roll out your OKRs and your KPIs, and really vet them? And once they meet my guidelines, then we're going to deploy between 500 and 700 ETH on mint day. And then the plan is to hold, right? So I'm going to meet with the teams every month, ask them if I can unblock them, support them, connect them, but also hold them accountable. How are you doing to your OKRs? How are you doing to your KPIs? And really understand how the project is doing.
Yeah. Now that sounds very different than how a lot of NFT teams and developers are really going through the motions right now. I mean, I would imagine that they might not even all have OKRs and KPIs. They may not be thinking about how they're working with investors, right? So do you see that as potentially being a roadblock, or maybe
it's a good roadblock?
Your vision is, it could be a good roadblock. I guess maybe also as the NFT space matures, those kinds of questions and expectations could be the new standard.
Yeah, and they should be the standard, right? It's ridiculous that projects are expecting folks to deploy, $3,000 into an unknown digital asset with no backing, no plan, no experience. It's crazy, right? And we're going to stay a million miles away from anonymous teams and teams with no experience. So yes, it's a roadblock, but it's actually a good one. I want our bar to be really high And I think Moonbird set a playbook that's going to be repeated, right? So we'll have more vetted, fully doxed teams coming into the space, building communities first, right? So not PFPs, but they're going to be building communities first, and then launching projects into those communities. Those are the kind of projects that we want to back. And I think we'll see more mint prices at, the 2 ETH mark. And then I think we'll see more secondary mint day prices at that 5 to 7 ETH mark, and we'll see this playbook repeat, which is good. It's good for the whole industry. It's good for the projects. It's good for holders. It's good for investors. It's good for founders. Like, it's good.
Yeah. And what else? You mentioned there's 3 pillars. Did you want to touch on pillar 2 and 3 as well?
Yeah. So pillar 1 is at least 55% of the capital. So it's the majority. And then about 15% of the capital is going towards one of ones. So I really, really believe in high quality, long-term artists. And I don't think those artists need to have a roadmap. I think that they are talented artists building a community around their art. And I think one of ones from those artists are extremely valuable and wonderful and beautiful. And so, I'm fortunate to have really good connections with some of the world's best artists. And so I just had a meeting with one of them and agreed to acquire one of their one of ones and then hold it. So we're going to acquire and hold very, very beautiful, very rare one of ones from those artists. So excited to do that. And there's 5 or 6 artists on that list. And then the third pillar is proof. I believe in proof. I know what's going on with proof. And I've never had more conviction on a team in my whole life, right? So we're going to deploy pretty heavy capital into the proof ecosystem. And I'm really, really excited about that.
Well, that's awesome. And it's giving me, and it should give, when Moonbird's holders and Proof Collective holders hear that, that should give them positive, some kind of reinforcement too, in knowing that you're still supporting the community, the ecosystem, and not just, it's easy to say, and it's another thing to follow up with actions, right? So very interesting pillars there. Now, across all that investing, I guess 2 big questions came into my mind as I was listening to those pillars. One is, are you going to be sharing the plans on what is getting purchased and held and the length of those holds and stuff like that beforehand, or is that only ever after the purchase happens? And I'll start with that question.
So the LPs are going to know the plan. And so I'm excited about this. So we're going to we have about 100 LPs, and we're going to have a private Discord, and I'm going to be very transparent about the plan. And so the hope is that they will co-invest with us. So, I'll say, all right, folks, we've identified project 1. We're going to deploy X amount of ETH on this day. And we invite you to invest with us, right? Because we're going to be investing as we have high conviction on the project, right? And so I think that's going to be very valuable for our investors to be able to co-invest and participate. And then but we won't share that publicly because obviously we'll get front run by the public. And I hope that when people see 121G buying in, they'll understand that this is a vetted high quality project and that 121G is a quality long-term holder. So when we buy into a community, it's because we believe in it. And then I hope that just causes more positive reinforcement that this is a good project. Obviously it's not financial advice. People should do their own research, but it should be a good sign for a project that we are deploying capital.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess we'll have to get you a Unstoppable Domains wallet as well, or a
yes,
domain,
please.
so you can use that. We're working on reverse resolution and all your favorite dApps and whatnot. So,
nice.
But that's great that you're thinking about how you can share that with the LPs, and also how you're wanting people to see what's being held, by the fund. Now, we're really in the early stages of we're in a state of uncertainty right now, right? Market wide. Some may think it could be a crypto downturn. Some people think it could be really related to the larger macroeconomic uncertainty that's going on in the world. I'm no economist and really can't provide I'm not going to even try to attempt a take at it. But what is your thought on we could be entering a multi-year bear market. We could be seeing a downturn in NFT activity. Does anything change if that happens for you? Or do the strategies stay the same? Or do you have any concerns about the downturn?
Zero concerns. In fact, I want to buy more. Honestly, I feel so fortunate that the timing of the fund is now. There's never been a better time to buy. So I'm grateful in that we're being given this opportunity. I am deeply sad for everyone that is losing significant amounts of wealth. Right, it is happening, and it's terrible. But we are going to use this opportunity to be even more aggressive. So this is the key. If you are investing in high quality projects, then these downturns don't matter. So I think we're very convicted. Of course, we're going to have bear markets, right? Of course, people are going to lose conviction, but that's exactly the right time to buy. So I think Web3 is here to stay forever, and I think if folks are able to deploy capital into this bear market, I imagine that will do very well for them. And it reinforces everything I believe. Investing in high quality projects is the key. Bet on the team, period.
Yeah, and I like that. And I might have two more questions before we jump into our Web 1, 2, 3, which I ask every guest on the pod. And the first one, and it's okay if the answer is you just can't share, but are you able to share one NFT project that is on the market now that you would consider a high quality project that has your attention that's not Moonbirds or Proof Collective?
Oh, I was about to say Moonbirds. Gosh. I can't share it right now.
That's okay. Well, I'll definitely be following the fund so I can learn as an inside scoop on what you're looking at. Now, and I guess the second question is, oh my gosh. It almost escaped me. So my second question relates to really almost the first thing you said in the interview. You said you really think that Web3 is going to change the world. And I'm curious as to like a kind of a succinct answer or line of thinking around why this technology is so impactful in your eyes. And I get so interested in hearing that answer because there's so much tech out there. There's climate tech, there's medical advancements, AR and VR. But what about Web3 speaks to you as something that's so game-changing?
I think it's the tokenization of every asset on the planet. It will absolutely transform our behavior. And I think it will optimize markets in ways that is extremely valuable for consumers. And I'm so excited about it. I think for once, consumers are actually going to be able to own their assets and control them. And I think that's a powerful, powerful thing.
Awesome. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And let's get into our Web 1, 2, 3 and wrap this up. Now, my first question is, who's an influential Web3 creator, entrepreneur, investor that's inspired or educated you? I know you've mentioned Kevin. If you want to shout him out again, you can. But if there's anyone else, please do.
Yeah, I think Betty at Deadfellows is awesome. I think Deadfellows is a great project. I think they have a good exec team, and I think she's a good leader.
Fantastic. Yeah, agree with that one. And we've been working with that community as well at Unstoppable, so love to see it. And what's your favorite NFT?
Ooh, my Proof Pass, 100%.
I'm
I love it.
I'm jealous. I did, and I do listen to the Proof Pod, and I did look at it on mint day. And at that time, that was kind of before the mints started happening above an ETH, and it just kind of threw me off. And I don't know. I didn't have that kind of bankroll at the moment, so I hadn't really sold any NFTs. I was just hodling, so I passed on it. But even though it's a regret, it's cool to hear that it's your favorite.
Yeah, we all miss projects, so don't beat yourself up.
No, we do. I didn't miss Moonbirds though, so there we go.
Yes.
And then in 5 years, what's the craziest thing you think we'll be doing in the metaverse that people just aren't thinking or talking about yet?
I think that we'll be mixing physical places and NFTs in ways that will be really, really fun. You can imagine stacking NFTs in physical places and unlocking experiences. I think it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait.
I like that. Cool. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for joining this podcast and sharing your perspective on Web3, on NFTs, what your future plans are. And I really do want to say I appreciate the open and honest conversation about Moonbirds and your experience to that, because I think it's valuable for people in the community here. I think it's valuable for potential builders to hear. So I'm just glad that you're coming out strong and going to be continuing to build and educate and support the ecosystem that we've got going on in crypto. So
appreciate the invite. It's been a blast.
For sure. Can you please share with everyone before we finish this up where they can find you, connect with you, follow you?
You bet. 121G is just 121g.fund. And then I'm on Twitter as Ryan Carson. My DMs are open, so hit me up anytime.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Ryan. Thank you to everyone listening to the Unstoppable podcast. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, drop a like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, following along, leaving a review goes a long way. So with that, we'll see you next week, and I'll see you in the metaverse. Peace out.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unstoppable podcast. If something we said today resonated with you, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with your friends. And remember, this conversation doesn't have to end here. Tweet us your thoughts, ideas, or questions at Unstoppable Web. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.